I am so relieved that this moment is here. Women's hockey has had a huge year. Women's soccer has been growing and growing. And now the big news. Toronto will become the newest member of the WNBA. This is an extraordinary moment in women's sports. Today on the show, what did it take for us to finally get here? I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. So look, last week, basketball fans across Canada got the news that they've been waiting years and years to hear.
Women's professional basketball is coming to Toronto, and fans couldn't be happier.
I think women are amazing, and I'm so excited to go watch my first WNBA game.
Women can do anything that men can do, so bring it on! Yeah, for the women! Yes, I like it.
That is right. Canada has its first WNBA team. It's going to be based in Toronto. This is a long time coming for Canadian pro women's basketball. It has this rich history of making noise on the international stage, but it's also coming at a time when the WNBA itself is building steam, thanks to the names that you've heard all over the news over the past few weeks. Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, and of course, this year's #1 draft pick, Caitlin Clark, who has been the talk of the town among basketball fans for months. Shireen Ahmed and Andrea Williams are here to celebrate this moment the WNBA is having, and also look ahead to this future that it's going to have here in Canada. Shireen, Andrea, welcome to the show.
Hey,
Hello.
I'm delighted to be doing this. Shireen, first of all, congratulations are in order to you because you got the story. This was not a story that was like, hey, we're doing this. You scooped everybody on the story. What was the lead up to that moment like for you as you were sort of leading up to releasing the scoop out in the world?
I was so anxious. I don't think I'd slept in 3 days. Like this beat news thing is like, those dogs with a bone. That's not me. I'm happy in my pajamas, writing my columns, doing my thing. This was out of my world, but it was extraordinary. I had a great team. I love my team at CBC Sports. They were super helpful. It's just, we held the story for a day just to make sure the rollout was good. So that was really hard, but yeah. I'm happy. The response was fantastic from everyone. So that was dope.
First of all, only Shireen could say, I got a scoop, but man, I'd rather just be chilling. This is a little bit too much energy for me, but I like that. But, you get the story out in the world and there's this like really big reaction. Tell me about the reaction. Tell me about the public's reaction to you breaking the story.
Well, we planned that the news go live at 4 a.m. So I started waking up every 15 minutes at 2:30, but of course I crashed at 3:45. So I missed the actual announcement. So a friend of mine beat me to the tweet when I woke up at 5:30. I was like, what? Anyways, it was instantaneous. And I had seen people, I had been working the PWHL playoff game here in Toronto. So I'd seen everybody and they're like, you didn't say anything. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. Not supposed to. So it was good. It was a lot. The response was fantastic from friends. People called me in tears, like literally genuinely crying of happiness. And that doesn't happen a lot to me. So like, my beat is not always a happy one. It's like race and gender and systems of oppression. So this was wonderful to tell the world something good is coming to us.
The idea of calling Shireen crying tears of happiness. That's a beautiful image. I love that. I want more of that for you. Andrea, you're someone that the show has turned to pretty regularly for country music analysis, but also like your beat is sports. Like you're a huge sports fan. You wrote a kid's book about basketball with LeBron James. Like this has felt like a banner year for pro women's basketball. What do you think, where do you think all of this attention is coming from and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, I think, obviously we talk about Caitlin Clark a lot, and yes, she's incredible. But I think what Caitlin did was bring more attention to what was already an incredible product, right? Like there's more, there are other great players besides Caitlin. There are great teams. You've got these great storylines now for as many people as you have like 10 toes down rooting for Caitlin. There's the other side that's like, I don't know, let's try to beat Caitlin, right? And that's what we love about sports. That's why we tune in. So I really think it was just this incredibly perfect storm and the media. I'm like Shireen, most of the time I'm writing pretty sad stuff. And then you called me on to talk about it, Elamin. But there were great things to talk about this year and the media showed up where they haven't before. So all of that together creates this moment that we're in now, which is so exciting.
Andrea, I want to talk about the thing that you just got at, which is that, like, in these moments, you do require narrative in order for people to get a sort of a buy-in into a league or a player or a team. And Caitlin Clark sort of provided that context for a lot of people because, like, you just haven't seen a player like that in a generation. And then you kind of get to this moment, and people have these really strong feelings, this push and pull over Caitlin Clark. Can we just play? We have we have a clip of a Caitlin Clark appearance on Saturday Night Live. I just want to play this clip real quick.
You make a lot of jokes about women's sports, don't you, Michael?
I wouldn't say a lot, but, you know, it's not on the regular.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot. I actually sort of made a supercut. Take a look.
Well, no, we don't have to do that. A number of sports bars around the country are promising to only show women's basketball games during March Madness. The bars are known collectively as the empty ones. A new report claims that recent stories on the Sports Illustrated website were actually generated by AI, and it's already making glaring mistakes. For instance, it made up something called the WNBA.
So that's SNL's Michael Che. He's getting dragged a bit by Caitlin Clark herself. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Shireen Ahmed is here. Andrea Williams is here, and we're talking about this banner year that the WNBA is having. And, of course, last week's announcement that Canada is going to be getting its first WNBA team. Shireen, we're celebrating now, but, like, I think that clip gets at some of the stuff that we should also talk about, right? But the ways that some comedians have felt quite comfortable turning the WNBA into a joke. And it's great that Caitlin Clark gets to roast Michael Che about it on SNL. But, like, it hasn't been all fun and games. There's pay disparity, there's sexism and racism in the industry. And then, like, now in the media coverage, this continues to be a big concern for the league. What's the one issue that hits really close to home to you as someone who's been covering this for a long time?
Well, I think it's definitely like the sexist jokes. I'm like, look, as Andrea said, we know the product is fantastic. And those who have been tuning in to women's sports and women's ball in particular, let's take college ball for an example. The viewership numbers, merchandise selling out, the stadiums filling out. Like, I forgot that men played basketball in college for a little while because I just don't watch it.
Yeah.
And the data is there. My case aside, the data is there and supports all these things. It's on the rise. And don't forget, a couple years ago, the women's college players got this tiny little weight room and a set of, like, small hand dumbbells. Mm-hmm. And it's like they're still putting out, and it's reminiscent of what's happening in the greater ecosystem of sports. It's reminiscent of the best hockey players in the world who happen to all be Canadian, in my biased opinion, that they didn't have a league until January 1st of this year, that we still in Canada do not have a professional women's soccer league. We will getting one in 2025. Yeah. But those things are all interconnected.
What about you, Andrea? What's the biggest issue for you as you sort of watch all of this attention on women's sports?
Yeah, I mean, as a Black woman, it's all the things, right? We're talking about a league that is dominated by Black women. So for me, it's everything. If we look at greater society, women are paid less than men, but Black women are paid even less than white women, right? And also Latina women and Native women. So it's all of those things together. As a member of the media, I obviously paid a lot of attention to the narrative that was being spun this year. The controversy when someone from the LA Times calls the LSU players dirty debutantes. All of that stuff contributes to this moment where, yes, there's excitement about what's happening, but there is also this, there's this negative side of it because for so long, the media did not pay attention. And now, even in that, ignoring what is happening, it starts to paint this picture of what women's basketball is and is not, based, I think, on who's playing. I mean, we saw this in ESPN's documentary on the Women's Dream Team and how coming out of that, it's like you've got all these incredible players. You've got Dawn Staley and Cheryl Swoops, and it's like, let's put Rebecca Lobo out there, right? Because we think Middle America can get behind her. So we haven't come that far since then, unfortunately. And I'm excited to see who gets to tell this story going forward as we have an expansion team in Toronto, hopefully in Nashville, and start to shift this thing in favor of these women.
And just to jump off what Andrea said, Caitlin Clark is beloved for Middle America because she's white.
That's right.
I mean, if you look at this draft class, it is phenomenal from start to finish. But you've got, Aaliyah Edwards, our Canadian Kingston's other superstar other than Elamin.
Yes, absolutely.
But then, Lissa Pili, who's, Native American, Samoan, and like the storylines and the level of play, including Cameron Brink, including Angel Reese, who is my favorite of that class. Like, yes, Caitlin's generational talent, no question.
Yeah.
But the entire group is an outstanding, remarkable level of athleticism. But Caitlin got her shoe before she touched the court. And AJ Wilson just got her shoe now. Like, I'm sorry.
So when you say got her shoe, you mean like got the sponsorship deal from a major sort of manufacturer that says like, yeah, we're gonna be sort of on board with this athlete for the rest of their career, or at least for the next few years. That's a significant turning point. It matters even more in the WNBA because there were a lot of people who were shocked, Shireen, to learn that Caitlin Clark, you know, for all the noise that we're making about her, the salary that she's going to bag a year for the next few years is like high 70,000, maybe low 80,000. Do you have the number off the top of your head? I think it was like $78,000. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's like 78. It's like higher 70s.
And people were genuinely shocked about like how like the disparity between her and like the lowest paid NBA player is literal millions of dollars. And so I feel like there's a split between, hey, we are in this celebratory moment, but also the celebratory moment is also a moment to sort of look at all those issues head on. How do you balance celebrating, but also going, man, we got a lot of issues to fix?
Well, I'm not worried about Caitlin Clark's money bags because she's got
fine.
ton from her endorsements. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
But what I am worried about are other players coming in and like, can they make ends meet? And because of the CBA, the agreement reached, you know, there's parental leave, there's stuff, you know, there's a lot of parents in this league.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to make sure they have that support, they have proper and comprehensive health care and all those things. But at the same time, I do really want to see, it was announced they're getting charter flights. And one other thing that I think we need to talk about is like the homophobia and particularly the misogynoir that Black women face in that league. So having these things like charter flights are for their own safety. It didn't actually really get in until Caitlin Clark was harassed at an airport. But, you know, because Brittany Griner sure could have used it. So I think that those things all aside, we're moving in the right direction. Do I want to see like the bench warmers somewhere, you know, make $1 million? Sure, I do. Absolutely. Because when you think about some of the players in the NBA and how bad those teams are sometimes, like the performance, and then you think about the women and like their grind and how they hustle and what they make, it seems very unfair. But I also want people to remember that the NBA didn't make money for like decades. So let's give it a little bit of grace. I think we have far too little grace for women's sports leagues.
We got about a minute left here, and each of you will have 30 seconds to name the as yet unnamed Toronto franchise of the WNBA. Andrea, I'm going to start with you. You are given the honor. Please, we are the Toronto what, according to you?
Listen, I don't know how I feel about this question as someone in the States, as a Nashvilleian. I feel like this is a setup. But in my very cursory, like, what is Toronto known for? I'm going to say this proudly. I'm going with the Toronto Towers. That's all I got.
Delightful. I will take it.
Is that good? Is that good?
Yeah, you're totally safe. That card will totally clear here. Shireen, what about you? Last word to you. You get to name this team. What do you want to name it?
Well, first of all, that's the name that was floating around. So props to Andrea for being in the know about that. I'm so mad about the construction on the Gardner. It has to be something about transportation. And I don't want to say the Rockets because there's already a team like Ride the Rocket, the TT. I don't know. The Toronto Transit Systems. I don't know.
See, that's already taken by the Toronto Transit Systems.
It's already taken. But I don't like, I'll go with Towers. I'll second Andrea.
You know what? We'll take it. Toronto Towers. I hope that becomes a name. Shireen, Andrea, I got to leave it there. But thank you so much for your time. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Shireen Ahmed is a senior contributor with CBC Sports. She also teaches sports journalism at Toronto Metropolitan University. She broke that story about the Toronto WNBA team. And Andrea Williams is an author and journalist based in Nashville, Tennessee. Canada's first WNBA team, which does not yet have a name, makes its debut in the 2026 season. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, it is my job to stay on top of all the newest TV shows that people are talking about. But right now, I'm going to play you a clip from a new show that millions of people are watching, but that I admittedly had never even heard of until last week.
So let me get this straight. You need a girl who can fake marry you for 1 year, move into your mansion and play wife, and on top of all that, give you a baby.
Correct. No love, no sex, no strings attached.
No sex. So the baby...
Absolutely no sex. The last thing I need is for things to get messy. The baby's gonna be artificially done.
$500,000.
For that price, I should just go get a real wife.
You wouldn't say that's the best acting in the universe, right? Would you? I mean, that is a clip from something called The Billionaire's Baby Bargain, which is the top streaming show right now on ReelShort.com. That's REEL Short.com. Real Short is one of the leading providers of what's known as vertical video. TV shows delivered in quick 90-second episodes, kind of like watching an entire soap opera, but in a series of TikToks, if you will. EJ Dickson recently did a deep dive into this booming industry for Rolling Stone. She's here now. EJ, welcome to Commotion, friend.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Listen, I'm glad that you did this deep dive so I don't have to, because I have so many questions about this. But let's just say for someone who's never waded into the universe of vertical video apps, can you just describe the kind of shows that you'll see on a place like Real Short?
Sure. They're basically feature-length soap operas, except they're vertically shot. So they're meant to be, as you said, consumed on your phone in bite-sized chunks, and you scroll down kind of like you're on your TikTok or You page for the next episode. And they're usually like pretty well shot. But as you noted, the acting is pretty cheesy. and the scripts read usually like they're written by someone who is not human.
Well, I was going to say, you've described the acting as somewhere between decent and sub-pornographic. Do you want to expand on what you would experience as you watch this thing?
Yeah, I actually find it's a pretty wide range. Some of the acting is somewhat impressive. And then you have people who come on screen and you're just like, oh, you've never been in front of a camera in a day in your life. And usually they haven't. So yeah.
I'm really interested in the idea of you being like, no, I will follow this actor on RealShort.com, but not this actor, because I find this actor to be pretty decent. I want to come back to that in just a moment, but I just want to talk about the type of app and the type of sort of construction that this is, because these have existed for a hot minute. You know, why do you think they're blowing up now when a few high-profile attempts into this industry have kind of failed? And I'm talking most famously of Quibi, which stands for Quick Bites, which launched in 2020, and it just kind of didn't go anywhere. But then now this is maybe working, question mark?
Yeah, I think the strike had a lot to do with it, actually. There wasn't any new content being put out
because
last
of the
year
actor
during the
strike last year. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and there weren't, any jobs for actors. And because these projects are non-union, there was a lot of opportunity there. It was a lot of, it was a chance for actors to work, so who were not, members of the union. So I think that helped. I think it also has to do with the fact that Quibi was an incredibly expensive proposition, and these vertical shorts decidedly are not. They use anonymous actors. They don't use big name stars. They hire kids straight out of film school to direct. And Quibi had the backing of people like Jeff Katzenberg and tried to enlist all these A-listers. These do not. So it's a much less costly undertaking, and I think that's to its advantage.
Yeah, what I remember about Quibi is like, there was. Do you remember one of the launching titles, which was like this Anna Kendrick show? It was like it's a show starring Anna Kendrick. All the episodes were like 8 minutes or less, and the proposition is like you could watch this entire thing on your phone. And in my head, I was like, this feels like it should work. This feels like there's a demand for watching this amount of television. These are, in many ways, even shorter. Like a lot of the shows that we see on Real Short are variations on the same themes and the same length, 90 seconds. They center around, wealth, these weird marriage plots. Werewolves and vampires are often involved somewhere. What do you make of this strange mixture of genres and titles like The Double Life of My Billionaire Husband and My Gorgeous Wife is an Ex-Convict? That doesn't sound real to me.
Yeah, so a big thing is that these are aimed at an international audience. It's not just native English speakers. They have people from all sorts of countries watching these. So I think that they try to make the titles as specific and as eye-catching as possible. And for that reason, and also keep the themes fairly universal for that reason. Most of these stories are sourced from web fiction sites, not Wattpad, but like, competitors to Wattpad.
Right.
So it tells you something about the type of content on there. But also what's really important to note is that it's all algorithmically generated. So the reason why they continuously ideate on these themes is because they know from experience that they've performed well before. And I think in the US, the idea of a contract marriage to a billionaire, like the clip that you played, it's kind of wild. It's like totally outside the realm of something that would resonate with US audiences. But in countries where the class systems are perhaps more rigid, it's like the ultimate Cinderella fantasy in a way. So I think the universality of these narratives is like really important when you're talking about why they use these themes over and over again.
How do you think that ends up affecting like who ends up being cast in these movies?
Yeah, that's a really interesting issue that I found out in my reporting. And I want to stress that this is primarily anecdotal. Like the CEO of Real Short, who I talked to, denies that race or ethnicity plays a role in casting whatsoever.
Okay.
But I spoke to many actors who said that they've spoken to various, production companies and various platforms, not necessarily Real Short. And these people have said that they try to avoid casting actors of color in leading roles because there is this perception that global audiences prefer seeing white actors on screen. And this is a common perception in mainstream Hollywood as well. And there have been studies done on this, and it's pretty clear that it's a false perception. But it has prompted a lot of the actors I spoke with to complain about white actors being cast as leads over and over again. And that's evident when you see the shorts on the homepage that are high performing, like they're almost universally starring white actors.
Did anything else strike you as kind of like a weird, problematic thing as a result of this mini industry kind of popping up?
Yeah, I mean, there are labor issues for sure. Like the average feature film takes about like 30 days to shoot, and these are the same length, and they condense the shoots to about like 5 days. Okay. So a lot of the actors told me that they can be like really grueling and really arduous. Also, sometimes they only get the scripts like a day before, and some of the scenes can be pretty steamy.
Sure.
So, a lot of the companies are adapting to the Hollywood practice of hiring intimacy coordinators and things like that to make actors more comfortable. But I did speak to actors who said that they have been on shoots where there has not been an intimacy coordinator on set, and that made them pretty uncomfortable. But I think the larger issue, aside from the labor issues, is the fact that these don't take like artistic merit or creativity into account at all. And the platforms are very open about that. This is entirely driven by an algorithm. And the scripts to some extent are, entirely driven by an algorithm. And it definitely has some concerning implications for the future of entertainment when we look at it through that lens.
Now, listen, I think actors take jobs for all kinds of reasons. And the idea that like there's a writer's strike, of course, that would end up affecting just like the literal availability of the work that you have in front of you, and maybe you take some of these jobs. But do you see this mini industry as a way to like launch a career into traditional acting, or does it feel like a kind of a closed off ecosystem that doesn't really have to do with the rest of the entertainment industry?
I think for now it's much more of a closed off ecosystem. But the actors that I spoke to sort of fell into two camps. A couple of them were like, this isn't going anywhere. This is a means to an end. I want to move on to mainstream projects and do bigger and better things. And a couple of them are like really all in and have sort of established a niche for themselves within this ecosystem. And they're like, this is going to be the next big thing. I want to be ahead of the game. Like I spoke to an actor who he's known as the king of verticals, and this guy Casey Esser, and he's done like 15 of them, which is crazy because he's only been doing them for like a year. And he has plans to start his own app where he creates his own content. So he's really like, he's all in on the future of verticals. He thinks this is going to be the next big thing.
Do you? Because I know you enjoy watching these, but do you kind of go like, this is just like an innocent, fun, new form of entertainment? Or is it like, actually, this is the practice run for when AI does everything for us? Like, is this ominous, or do I need to be so dramatic?
I think it's both. I think it's ominous and it's also fun.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I can't say that like I watch them and I don't necessarily feel good about myself or feel good about like the future of the entertainment industry, but I also really enjoy them. They're incredibly addictive. When I was researching the story, I was watching a ton of these, and my husband at first was like, "What are you watching?" Like,
you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go watch a bunch of these, and then I will let you know exactly how I feel about them. But EJ, I got to leave it there. But thank you so much for your time, friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. EJ Dickson is a senior writer for Rolling Stone. You can read that piece on Vertical Video at rollingstone.com. My name is Elamin. This show is called Commotion. That's it for today. See you tomorrow.